I'm finally able to hold a comic book that I've been developing over the past year, bagged and boarded. I'm able to flip through it, read it, sell it, make money off of it. The show that it debuted at just this past weekend that I did tabling, I was thinking to myself, well, maybe I should make a video. Maybe I should go through the A to Z process, how you get to the point of having nothing, maybe just idea or a sketch in your sketchbook to now, okay, I have a book, boom, let's make some money off this bastard. I just want to get right into it. Let's not waste any time. Let's just go. I've sort of whittled it down to just 4 steps that you can follow. And each of those 4 steps kind of is a chapter, and there's sort of bullet points. So it's more like a 12 to 15 step process. But the 4 steps, you'll be able to use them and apply them to your own process. The first chapter of the whole comic creation process, I'm going to just label it as ideation. If you saw my last video, this is where the brain dump belongs. This is where the thumbnails belong. This is where the design page belongs, where you're just selecting the thing that you're going to pursue to make into a comic book. Because this took me a year to make. It's a big commitment. You keep drawing a certain character, or you keep drawing a weapon, and you keep coming back to this universe that you have in your mind. It could be like how this sword is made of dragon bone, or it could be a certain armor set of this faction. And you don't really, it's just kind of like in your head. It's kind of just like a vision. You don't have anything plotted out or planned out. It's just a cool thing you keep going back to. This is where the ideation phase starts. Having something that you can build off of. If it is those dragon sword weapons, how are those dragon sword weapons made? How are they blacksmithed? Creating like a lore book or like a bestiary or something. If you want to have sort of laws of your universe, that belongs to the ideation phase, because you don't want to be drawing your pages and penciling your things and figuring out, okay, well, how do werewolves exist in this universe? Well, how does that make sense? You want to have all this stuff figured out in the ideation phase. Building it, you're hyper focusing on that concept, and now you're building on it. So you're writing a lore book, you're creating a bestiary, you're creating a universe, you're creating a world. How do you do this? I mean, a lot of what comic book making is, comic book writing, ideating, is just commit yourself to sitting at your desk when you wake up in the morning, or whenever you feel the most creative. It could be after your work shift at night at 2 a.m., whatever it is. Sitting with no distractions, being bored out of your mind. That is one of the best tools to build a universe or build a world, is to just sit and think. Okay. And then also in the ideation phase, you're going to be thinking about the plot or the genre of the comic book that you're going to make, of the story of the children's book. This is all pretty similar. Is the plot going to be like a MacGuffin based thing? Is there going to be like Davy Jones's heart in the chest that everybody, all 3 people are trying to get after? They all have their own reasons to go after it. Or you can just focus on a character. Is the character the plot driver? Is the character the person who is moving the plot forward? You're going for what started as an ember or a little fire starter in your mind, so we can then have a roaring bonfire of synergy within this universe. Maybe not that crazy, maybe not that intense, maybe just a little campfire. Maybe it just actually is burning now at this point, but the ember has now turned into the eternal fire that this comic is now going to become. The second chapter, the second part of creating a comic, creating an idea, is the writing phase. So at this point, you can immerse yourself in the world that you've created. You can think the way the characters think. Imagine the feeling of what it's like to exist in that world. If it's a monster story, or it's a MacGuffin story, if it's horror, if it's Western, if it's sci-fi, if it's romance, you know that by now. So now you're writing the script and the rough script. This is where the bulleted list comes in. This is where the rough script comes in. Your first draft, maybe you send that off to a friend, you send that off to somebody that you trust. Like Jake Parker has the concept of like the trust, his writer, his story trust. That's something that I think works really well. Sometimes I'll send it to my brother, I'll send it to my partner, I'll send it to whoever I trust, to be like, well, does this make sense? Does this work? The other thing you're thinking about is just a general vibe. If it's a flashback sequence, you're going to want to clue the artist into how you want to draw those pages, or how you want those pages to feel, versus, okay, the action-packed car chase scene is going to be a little bit more vibrant. Cluing that into the script. If you have a vision of how you want a city to look, things like that, that all comes into the writing. A lot of what writing is really just sitting and waiting and thinking. It's not a sexy or cool or fantastical or magical process. You're not trying to include plot contrivance or coincidence in your story. You want things to flow, cause and effect. The South Park writers talk about this. How if they're just writing bing, 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 and then this happens, and then this happens, you're gonna have a story that people are gonna be like, what? This doesn't make any sense. This happens because this, and that causes that, and this happens because that happened. So now this is gonna, it's a snowball effect, you know? A snowball rolling down a mountain. You don't want to have just a snowball fight. Those are my tips for writing. I'm not a fucking writer. I think even Sean Gordon Murphy goes like, if I'm able to put in A+ art, I can get away with my B grade writing, because like the art is gonna sell the writing, and I feel like that makes sense. I'm not gonna toot my own horn, but my Shrimp Cassidy comic or cartoon, that's A+ writing, okay, with with like a D- art. I'm totally phoning it in for the art. I'm just trying to get it done, and the writing is carrying that situation. So think about what kind of effect you want that to have. The third step would be drawing. So I'm going to include thumbnails, penciling, inking, coloring, pretty much everything that is actually going into making the actual page. That is considered drawing. The drawing phase, I feel like, is sort of self-explanatory. It's not really that self-explanatory, because how do you draw is the main question. But I'm not going to teach you how to draw in any of these videos. I'm probably not going to teach you how to draw a fucking thing. I'm probably not going to teach you how to draw a face or how to draw a body, because guess what? I don't know how to. All my stuff is AI generated. Okay? No, I'm kidding. I'll probably have some kind of video in the future talking about gestures or talking about what makes a dynamic figure, what makes a good drawing. But that's not the focus of this video. To reel it back in, okay? I feel like the drawing phase is where you use your tools and you use everything that you studied. So all the art books, all the animation books that you've read, that whole library and just bandwidth that you have in the back of your mind, this is where you're applying that in the drawing phase. You shouldn't have to have an art book next to you or something to reference where it's telling you how to storytell. These are things that you, in your off time, you want to read and research. But when you get down to the desk, you should be working automatically and should just be using everything that you've learned at this point. And then as far as the finishing stages go, I mean, you have the whole comic created now at this point. So now you're just focusing on scanning the documents. If you're working at 11:17 analog, pen and paper, then you're just going to want to scan the things at 300 DPI, 600 DPI, something like that. Be able to then bring them into a digital format. Whatever program you use, it could be Affinity, it could be Adobe InDesign, making sure all your balloons are in place. Last checks to make sure all the grammar's right, your spelling is right, because the last thing you want is a comic that misspells something. And it's like, really, you didn't check that? Like, you know, setting up the pages properly, they're in the right order. And the finishing can be as short or as long as you want, whatever level of finish that you're looking for. You know, I've spent a whole day finishing a book, or I've spent, all right, boom, I just load it in, I make a PDF, boom, 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 it's done. You have the whole book done already at this point, and you're just putting things in place. So there it is. I mean, those are the 4 steps to make a comic book. You guys got pretty much all the tools that I have. I just dumped all my knowledge. Next week, I'm thinking about probably making a video where I'm actually drawing, because I've done a whole lot of talking about comic books, but not really any drawing yet. So it's going to be something along the lines of probably doing a double-page spread. I appreciate you guys for watching the video. If you watched the whole thing, that's sweet. If you could like and go ahead and subscribe if you're new, I'd very much appreciate it. And I'll see you guys next week. I mean, we're going to keep riding this train. All right, thanks for watching. Bye, guys.